All right, welcome to our Find Your Next Six-Figure Infill Deal Friday, May 22nd, 2026. This week we actually have a Garden City infill deal. It's actually kind of a unique deal. It has a fix and flip opportunity and then also a development piece as part of it as well. And so because of that, it takes a little less leverage than some of the just raw land deals that we've been having lately. And then I'm gonna just cover a little bit of education just in the beginning here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the different strategies that we use on when we develop and build that you don't really see a lot of times on existing properties. So that there's some benefits to new construction that we can do that you don't always get with existing properties. So essentially, we can basically design a project around your investment goals. And those strategies, there's different strategies there. Number one, our most common probably people look at because of the returns that we see sometimes is just building to sell. But then we also have a lot of investors that are looking to hold rentals. So that can look like long-term rentals, so building it for long-term, building it for short-term, or building it for mid-term. And all of those, we use different strategies when we design them. And so, for an example, when we build it to sell, the things that we consider going into that is we're going to look at the target market for that build, like who's going to be buying it, and then how are they going to use it. So we want to basically design the most efficient floor plan for that target market end user, to basically keep your costs in check, and then also at the target price point that target user is going to be buying it at. And so we look at that independently for each deal because it also depends on like what part of town it's in, or the density, that kind of thing. So, is it going to be a first-time home buyer that's going to primarily be buying it, or somebody downsizing, or maybe somebody that's upgrading housing? Those are, all three of those are typically different buyers, and so we design it differently depending on who we think that target market's going to be. Number two is going to be the building for long or build yeah for building for long-term rentals. And so with those, like if you're holding it as a long-term rental, we're going to design it to have the most efficiency for the floor plan. So for example, if you were to design a 3-bedroom 2-bath house, that's typically what you look at for long-term rentals, maybe 2.5 bath, or even 3-bedroom 3-bath, or 3.5 bath if you're going to rent by the room. That's another strategy actually. But we're going to look at, so if you can build, if you just design it as a 1,600 square foot house, but you can basically make the exact same I guess functionality by building it as a 1,400 square foot house. So you just save 200 square foot there, and then that typically equates to around 40,000 or more in the build cost. And so a lot of times that makes a difference between either a project, just barely breaking even or maybe losing a little bit of money to actually cash flowing. And so we really want to pay attention to that if you're building for long-term rentals. And then if you're building as short-term rentals, we still are going to pay attention to the efficiency of the floor plan, so maximizing the square footage, but we're also going to pay more attention to the design elements. So typically you're going to design it differently than you would a long-term rental. Like for the long-term rentals, for example, again, too, you're going to want really durable but affordable finishes. And also, that's modern. But then on the short-term rental side, you're going to spend a little bit more on finishes because you're really trying to get that wow factor for the Airbnb market. Especially as there's more competition now. You want some, if you're going to design it for Airbnb, you want that extra special finishes and functionality. So for example, one of the things that we would look at for a short-term rental is we might make smaller closets because you don't really need the closet space on a short-term rental. And we might put like a built-in desk in the bedroom instead of more closet space. And then same thing with like the bathrooms. We'll typically make maybe a little bit larger bathrooms with basically spa-like bathrooms. So you spend a little bit more money on the bathrooms than you maybe would on a long-term rental. And then, maybe we also we do like accent walls, and then we also maybe spend some more money on the backyard and the landscaping than you would on a normal long-term rental as well. And then there's also the midterm rentals. So that's like for your travel nurses. This is the type of thing where you would design it similar that to how you would design it for a long-term rental. But you're going to maybe add some of those design elements again to make it more appealing to those people that maybe want somewhere nicer to live for 6 months because they're going to be paying a little bit extra anyway. So they're going to want it just a little bit nicer than they would on a long-term rental, and make it comfortable for them for 6 months. So typically, again, spend a little bit more money on the design, but similar to a long term. And then there's also, I mentioned before, the if you're going to rent it by the room, there's also that strategy and kind of what your end user is going to be for that too. Is it going to be college students, or is it going to be maybe young professionals? Or maybe it's travel nurses. So you kind of look at that, and then we design it accordingly. So that's just a little bit of the training that we're going to cover every week, just to kind of give you some more insight into new construction and infill development. Um, and then if this is your first call, if you're just listening for the first time, a little bit of introduction to myself and what I do. My name is Zach Matson. I'm a developer and builder here in Boise, Idaho. I got started back in 2013. I bought a duplex, then bought a second one in 2015. Basically, house hacked, lived in one side, rented out the other. And then in 2016, I got into flipping houses full time before transitioning to infill development. I bought my first development in 2019 and kind of scaled up slightly in 2020 through 2022, and then a little bit more in 2024. And then basically at the beginning of last year, I realized that there's so much opportunity out on the market, and there's not enough people taking advantage of the opportunities because number one, development is typically kind of a high bar to get into. Number one, because the education or lack of education that there is out there. People just don't know about it, and there's not a whole lot of education out there on it. But number two is the financing structures. A lot of the financing isn't the same, so we have to use different lenders, and there's a smaller group of lenders that'll lend on it. Um, and then not only that, but just not being a GC or a developer, if you're not a developer or a general contractor, you don't really know how to get into development. So those are all the kind of the challenges that people don't understand or know how to get into development. And so I kind of realized there was a ton of opportunity for me to bring my team and my systems in where we can basically underwrite these deals for investors and bring these deals to investors and help investors take advantage of the huge upside that there is in development, um, uh, and basically kind of make it a win-win where the investor owns it, benefits from the upside, and then we can also it helps my team obviously because we bring in or we generate revenue for our business. So we're going to get into a little bit of the deal list access here. So we have our full-time deal list that you can get access to, or full-time access, I should say. So if you're a realtor or an investor, you can get access full-time. So number one, so if you're a realtor, we have you watch or attend in person. I think probably June or July we'll have some more in-person events. But we have a part 1 and 2 of infill development and new construction. It just kind of explains our process on both, number one, how we find and identify infill opportunities, and then number two is just our construction process. So you can watch those replays as well. And then we have a part 3, which just covers our kind of the details on how what you're looking at on the infill deal list when you have access to it. Then we just have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to use our strategies that we're suggesting with the buyers, that you're going to introduce us to your buyers early on in the process. That just essentially makes sure that we can all get on the same page, and also keeps us in the loop. So you're not, having your buyers close on a property that we don't know about and don't have an opportunity to use our system on to do all the due diligence and everything, which I'll get into all the details of that here in a second. And then as a bonus for realtors, we give you free marketing campaigns that you can co-brand with us. And then if you're an investor, We have the same deals where you can watch our 3-part training series. That's actually geared. We have one geared towards realtors, another one geared towards investors, but it's basically the same information. And then we just make sure you have a buyer's representative agreement signed with one of our with a sponsoring realtor. So if you don't already have a realtor, we can refer you to one of the realtors that have already been through our training. If you're already working with a realtor, you can still bring them on. We just have them go through the training as well, so we're all on the same page. And then we have you just sign an agreement, kind of the same thing. Like if you're going to use our strategies and everything, that you'll use us basically to do the work for you. And then we also have you sign like an NDA, basically just not so you're not sharing our proprietary information with the public. And then a little bit about how we make our money. So I'm a general contractor, so we make our general contracting fees on the horizontal and vertical. We also charge for our entitlements, so we're fully vertically integrated. So we help from the due diligence all the way through the build. And so for that, for the entitlements process, we manage all that in-house. We just charge a management fee. That's just based on an hourly fee to manage all the professionals and the agencies and all the back and forth. And then we also charge a consulting fee at purchase, and that's just to cover our time and energy and money that we have into this system and all the upfront work that we do, especially on the due diligence, because we have about a 200 point checklist on our due diligence checklist. It's really probably the most in-depth due diligence out of I would say almost any developer out there, because I've seen a lot of developers get caught on a lot of the stuff that we catch. So before we ever have you close on it. So it's a great process. We've really spent a lot of time and money on getting it honed in and doing the system. So you're not buying a deal that you get stuck with not being able to do what we think you're going to be able to do. And then to back that up, uh, our we do a profit guarantee and an entitlements guarantee, which I'll cover here in a second. But a few of the details of our offer here. So we have um, when you participate in our system, we give you some kind of additional benefits. So when you buy a deal with us, so we offer expert deal underwriting, so that you're not guessing at something yourself. So we vet, analyze, and underwrite every single deal on our infill list. So we're not just estimating numbers. We've done all this stuff before. We know exactly what's going to be required. We know what the costs are. And so we have it pretty, even at a high level, we have it pretty accurate. Now, once you get under contract, we go even further in depth. That's what that checklist is for. But at a high level, we understand these deals. Number two is we're going to have offer and negotiation support. So we'll help you and your realtor present an offer that works for all parties. And then we'll help with the due diligence. And by help, I mean we do like 95% of it. So you have a couple of things to do, but that 200 points we actually work through step by step. You'll have access to that due diligence checklist. You can follow along as we go. And then if there's an existing house on the property, like today's deal, we can do that renovation with that as well. So because of my background in as a general contractor, but also flipping, we have plenty of experience with these types of homes where we can go in and renovate it in a timely manner and then turn it over to, some of these you flip and sell right away. This one you'd basically fix it up and rent it out. And then we do the entitlement management, like I mentioned earlier. So we manage the entitlement process from due diligence all the way through until it's fully entitled. And then the last parts is the horizontal and vertical. Those are two different phases, but we're the general contractor for both of those. So we manage that whole process as well and use our subs and our systems. Some of the bonuses that we give you. So we give you our ultimate guide, introduction to new infill development. If you're on our email list, you've already received that most likely. And then we also give you our due diligence checklist. So once you're under contract on a property, we're going to give you access to that due diligence checklist. You can follow along. And then the bonus with that too is before the end of due diligence, usually the last day of due diligence, we're going to have our final one-page underwriting worksheet. And so what that is, that basically acts as your final go or no go to make a final investment decision on the property. So that'll have the final underwriting numbers on it. So it'll have the profit guarantee, how many units, the strategy, If your goal is rentals, what that looks like, all the key details of that project. And then we're going to compare that when we're finished at the very end of the project. We're going to compare that the results with that one-page underwriting, and the goal is to outperform that. But we're going to back that up with our profit guarantee and entitlements guarantee, which I'll mention here in a second. So then we also give you our entitlements process checklist. So once we start entitlements, we give you that checklist with the projected timelines. We'll also do that with our construction processes for horizontal and vertical. And then on the vertical, we also do a third-party new home inspection report on every house that we build. And that's actually at 4 different phases. So we actually inspect behind the walls, at drywall, and then also at that initial finish stage, and then the final inspection. Just to make sure you have a perfect house, whether you're keeping it or selling it. You can turn that over to a new buyer if we're selling it. And so that just kind of helps the process go smoothly and make sure you're getting a perfect house. And then we also do a monthly progress call. So that's the last Friday of every month. It's a separate link, but it's immediately after this call, the last Friday of every month. So whether you already have a deal with us, you're just interested in purchasing a deal, you can join that call and kind of see some of the background on like the progress made from the previous month. So if you watch those every month, you can kind of see how stuff progresses through entitlements, through development, through construction. We do all that. So, and then the final parts are the guarantees. So we do our entitlements guarantee. So for example, on this deal, today we have it projected to be able to subdivide it into 4 additional townhomes. So once we get through the due diligence, if it stays at 4, we're going to guarantee that if we don't achieve the unit count that we underwrite at final entitlement, we're going to waive our next fee or apply it towards the development cost. So if you're just getting it entitled and then sell it, or developed and selling it, we apply that towards your next deal. Or most of the time we're going to develop and build it. So then if we miss the unit count, and you only get 3, then we're going to waive our next, or apply that fee that we charge towards the horizontal development costs. And then we also are going to do our underwriting guarantee, and this is our profit guarantee. So basically what that is that we guarantee that if the project doesn't meet at least 100% of the projected profit at final underwriting, we're going to refund you up until it does. And that's up to 50,000 per deal if it's 1 or 2 homes, or if it's more than that, it's 20,000 per home, up to a total of 10 homes, or 200,000 per deal. So it's not unlimited, but it gives you that additional buffer in case things don't go exactly as planned. We are usually really conservative on our underwriting, so our goal is always to under promise and over deliver. But it gives you that additional buffer if things happen or something happens in the economy or whatever. It gives you additional buffer where you're reducing your risk even more, and you have some degree of certainty of what's going to happen on the outcome. So you're rolling this. So you basically are buying these deals, and then you're making all the big decisions. You're still relying on us to do all the heavy lifting, to use our experience. We're going to help make those big decisions for you, but ultimately, you're making those big decisions. And then the timeline, it's typically the target is 6 figures in 36 months or less. So some of these deals are 1 or 2 years, some of them are 3 years. If it's multi-phase, sometimes it can be 4 or 5 years. But the target on all these deals is 3 years or less. And then you have protection just because you have visibility into the costs and timelines and progress that you don't normally have on deals that you're a passive investor on. So you're kind of a passive investor in the fact that you're relying on us for a lot of this stuff, but you're active because you own it and you are making the decisions. And we're basically kind of a partner as we go along, and we're constantly in communication with what's going on with the deal. That you don't really get that insight when you invest in like a syndication or something where you're basically just invested in somebody else's deal. And then ultimately, why would you use us? Well, number one, I don't think this system exists anywhere in the country. But number two, we specialize in infill development. So we focus on small multifamily, even as small as adding ADUs, subdivisions, these small to mid-sized subdivisions, lot splits, anything that has to do with infill development. And then we're zoning experts. So that's kind of my superpower is I basically can understand the highest and best use of a property, within minutes of looking at it. Um, and have experience in all, like basically all the strategies that we implement in all of these deals. I have experience in, and I understand from an investor's perspective and a builder's perspective, versus one or the other, which is what most people have the vision of. Okay, before I jump into the deal of the week, does anybody have any questions? I'll pull up my screen here. Okay, the deal of the week this week is in Garden City. It's actually right on Adams Street and 45th. So pretty great location. It is kind of west of Veterans Memorial. So, the benefit of getting it west of Veterans Memorial is typically the prices over there are a little bit less, and it has a ton of upside, especially as things get developed around it. For example, this deal this week. So let me show you here as I zoom out. So this dirt around it, this is out the assessor's website, so this is never like a fully updated picture, but this is currently an under construction 22 unit townhome and detached single family. So basically surrounding it on both sides, instead of being trailers like you have in a lot of Garden City, you have brand new construction. I don't know what they're going to price these at yet. We haven't seen anything. This deal was on the market for quite a while, and they had it. They were originally projecting the townhomes to sell at like 650. I don't know if they're going to still sell at that, but ultimately, as you build around these, and then this is going to be, basically 3 years behind, you're going to have, much better area. And then this area across the street has been developed now for, I think these were built in 2018. And so my comps, when we get into the prices here, my comps were actually based on ones that sold here that are actually already 8 years old. And so I think the prices that I kind of analyze these at are really conservative, considering that we're pricing against, properties that are, um, effectively 25% past their useful life. Now, obviously, long term, they're more than that, but when you look at depreciation, basically, that's what we look at. So, and then there's also new construction townhomes in other areas too that are priced higher than what I ran comps at with this, but we didn't have a whole lot of sales besides these ones. So I kept it really conservative, but when I show you the numbers, I think these could realistically sell for, 50 to 100,000 or more above what we're actually projecting. But we stay conservative on the front end so that hopefully it's a much better outcome than we anticipated. Now, the cool thing with this too is that because this development is already in, we'll have to confirm this during due diligence, but I'm fairly certain there's probably a sewer main or at least sewer laterals right here, or worst case, there's a sewer main in Adams. You just run the sewer lines off of the main in Adams. So there's not a lot of infrastructure. You don't have to put a sewer main in because it's already there. The sidewalks, you basically just have to do this one part right here because out front is already done. And there's not a lot of, again, like water lines, those are typically really easily accessible. So there's just not a lot of infrastructure that has to go in. So it's pretty inexpensive to develop the lots. That can add to higher profits on the build. And then for location, so it's 45th Street, but then you have the river literally a block away down 45th here. So my computer takes a little while to think, but the river is literally right here a block away. So great location, and then about a mile away, you have that new 80-acre park going in at Expo Idaho. Anybody that's familiar with Garden City is very aware of what's going on in Garden City, which is basically a complete redevelopment of the entire little city. It's just a 4 square mile area, but it's been overlooked for decades. And just in the last 15 years, it's been getting redeveloped like crazy. And it's basically something new is popping up every single month. Um, Okay, so this deal, what's kind of unique about this is it can take a little bit less cash than typical. Now, what I will say, so they're asking 399,000. I don't think this property is actually worth this. I put the price there obviously because that's what they're asking, but I think if somebody came in with a cash offer, which if you do a flip loan, I think you can probably get it for a little bit better price. I won't say exactly, but I think as is, the house and lot are probably worth closer to 300 or even a little bit less. Just judging by what's been selling in that area. The house is kind of in rough shape. And there's a trailer on it as well, which probably isn't in any condition to rent. But let me just show you some of the pictures here. So this is the inside the house. I mean, you could probably rent this as is if you didn't want to put a lot of money into it. It looks like it could just be probably cleaned up, and rented as it. This is the trailer, by the way. But the house, and I don't know, maybe the trailer is in rentable condition, especially for cheap. For that, 1 year while you're going through entitlements, it is pretty rough, but at any rate, the house you either rent it as is. The tricky thing is we've already kind of looked into and talked to a lender on this. One of our realtor partners actually touched base with a lender, and it doesn't sound like you could do conventional financing on this with the condition it's in. So we actually underwrote this deal where you actually get a flip loan. So you would get a flip loan, fix it up, and then once it's fixed up, you exit into more conventional loan or a DSCR loan. So we have this have a $78,000 budget to fix up the house. We think the house will be worth 425 after that. This whole holding cost covers the cost of doing the flip, the flip loan on it. So you end up basically just barely breaking even on the existing house, but that's really basically just to kind of help with your costs on it. So we don't necessarily care whether you make money or not on the house. And the other thing we actually, so when we look at this, I assign a value of the existing house at 300,000. And then, so essentially you're paying for the lot or the land, you're paying an extra 100,000. And so this number, this break even number is based on the 100,000 or the $300,000 purchase price of just the house. And then we assign essentially saying that you're paying another 50 or 100,000 for the land. This is the entitlements cost per lot. This is the development cost per lot. This is really low. Typically, when you go development, kind of like if you're developing out on a 40-acre parcel, kind of outside of town, this is typically going to be 60 to 80,000 or 100,000 per lot. In town on developments, they're typically 40 to 50,000 per lot. So this is actually pretty low even for that. This covers interest costs and the infrastructure costs, and all of our fees. As townhomes, this is pretty conservative for the resale, but if you were to sell them as individual lots, it looks like could actually make money on those even. Um, or you could basically carry it all the way through to the build. And again, I think you have a lot more upside on this. I underwrote this two different ways. They both pencil about the same. I don't have it underwritten here, but when I previously underwrote it, this underwriting is to do detached townhomes from the garages and then doing ADUs above the garage. So a little bit more square footage in bedrooms and bathrooms, but I think that you have a unique opportunity in this location specifically because of the rear access and also the depth of the lot. To kind of do a unique product that you don't usually get to do in Garden City, which is detached garages with ADUs above specifically, and still have a decent sized townhome. And so the ADUs above the garages, you could have as a single story or even 2 stories above the garage, which would be a little bit bigger. And then the townhomes would be the middle units would be 1,700 square feet, and then the end units would be 2,100 square feet. And then we're adding the ADU square footage on top of that. This is your average construction cost for each of those. Then your total kind of all in for the entitlements, development, and build. your interest costs on the build, and then the average resale price. I have these at 650 for the smaller ones, 685 for the larger ones. There's actually the new construction townhomes kind of sim in a similar location, but over down by the fairgrounds. They're on the market for 750 for 2,100 square feet. So we actually have this 685 is 65,000 below the same size townhomes that are on the market and have actually sold too. They've sold three of those. And those don't have ADUs. So this is adding ADUs plus uh I think this is actually a little bit better location because it's kind of in between the fairgrounds and the Whitewater Park area. Um, so I think realistically, this is probably really conservative, but I just, again, I want to be conservative going in. So we actually based our numbers off of the townhomes across the street and then kind of added the extra value for the ADUs. But if you take away the ADUs, that square footage and build cost, that ends up being about the same profitability. Okay, so we have a total
Hey, Zach,
profit.
I got a question.
Yeah,
Um, the property across the street, those units, I think some of them have attached garages, some of them have detached garages. Um, I can't remember what you said. We're using those as comps for this?
yeah,
Okay. And what was the
yeah.
comp on those?
The ones on free ride. So those are 1,700 square feet and sell them for 525. There's like three of them that have sold recently.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty good for that area.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then the other ones I was talking about, the new construction ones, I think they have three sold, and I think they have, I want to say five more in the market. But three of them sold at 750 that are 2,100 square feet, and those are down. I forget the name of the road, but they're literally right next to the park that's going in. I want to say it's Swain Lane, but I'm not sure if that's the right one. There's a Swain as well, but I think that might actually be on the other side of Chinden.
Oh, okay.
But these ones are basically the ones that are selling for 750 and on the market for 750 are down by it's like 51st Street, but I forget the name of the actual road that the new road that they created. I don't really have I don't have my MLS pulled up, so I can't go to it quickly, but okay, so we have basically how the numbers work on this. So we have 25% down on the based on the value of the existing house. So what we think our lenders would look at is they would have 25% down on this value, plus then basically 40% down on the difference if you buy it at 399. Ideally, you can buy it at 300 or I'd say between 270 and 350 would be a decent deal. That just increases your profitability, lowers your risk. Um, but we look at it based on this number. So 25% down based on the 300,000 and then 40% of the 100,000. So basically out of pocket at the purchase, we think will be about 115,000. And then you pay for the entitlements out of pocket. And then typically our construction lenders are going to finance the horizontal out of pocket. Particularly if they can, I think they would on this is if you have the right deals, we can have the lender carry the existing house too, because it'll be at a pretty decent loan to value, especially overall as the project. So you have your total ROI. And again, so we underwrite these with how we look at them as, okay, how can somebody come in with the least amount of cash? If you have more cash, we always recommend, deals like this to do, well, not necessarily. This one's great because there's an existing house that you can keep, so you keep a lot of this value. If this were just raw land, we actually did underwrite it as raw land too, taking out the existing house. Those deals we like to see, buying the land as cash because the numbers work a little bit better and there's a little bit less risk involved without carrying a loan on the land, just the land. But Because there's an existing house that you can fix up and retain, you can actually use that as leverage pretty well in this deal. Then when you have it, so once you have the existing house split from the original property, so that's after entitlements and then putting in whatever infrastructure is required. So if you have to put in the sewer, stub the sewer lines to the property, put in the sidewalk. So once you do that, you can finalize the plat, split off that existing house. Now you can sell that existing house, get a lot of your capital back, and now you're in it for only 105,000. And this is assuming, 2 years from now, the house is the same price it is, or the value stays the same. Um, and then your remaining equity is about a 500,000. Now, when you sell everything, you don't keep all that equity because you have sale costs on the tail end. So that's why it's only 200,000 profit versus, 500,000 or 400,000. Um, and then we also underwrite these if you basically keep the existing or sorry, if you sell all but one unit and then keep that and refinance it into long-term debt, and kind of what that looks like. Which I don't, that one doesn't necessarily pencil this way. Um, but we also didn't factor in ADUs on this one. When I re-underwrote this, I don't think I added the ADU income. So you could actually probably about break even or actually probably cash flow about um probably about $500 on this deal if you had ADUs on it, just by the quick look at it there. So if you kept basically sold the existing house, sold all but one of the townhomes and kept the townhome plus an ADU and refinanced whatever debt was on it, you'd cash flow probably around $500 a month. So if anybody's interested in that specific strategy, I can go more in depth on it and analyze it further. I just redid this to add the ADUs out of curiosity, and then I didn't update the rentals. And then if anybody's curious on what it looks like if you tear down the house, the other thing you could do with this too is theoretically you could actually do this in two phases, where you can retain that leverage piece of that existing house, but then basically do it as a two-phase. So once you have those other townhomes built and sold or rented, refinanced, you could basically then tear down the existing house, and then we could design that. We could build. Let me pull up the site plan here.
Hey Zach, can I interrupt you real quick?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I didn't see. I just saw you raised your hand. Yeah.
You were on a run. uh, the cash number that you've got there is almost 200,000. And that is that including the 40% for construction cost, or is that just your 25% down payment and your entitlements? What are you calculating there?
Yeah,
Because
that's
I've been
the
talking to Anna about this one and I'm really interested, but I want to make sure that I'm where I want to be.
yeah. So that is, and also, by the way, I would try to get, like, if you want to make an offer on this, I
Yeah,
would do it as a flip loan and try to do it basically present it as like a cash offer that way.
yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
then and get the purchase price closer to where the value of the actual house is, which is I think closer to 300,000 or maybe even a little bit less. Because if you're not like factoring in any value in the land, the house itself is probably worth 300 at best because it needs a lot of work. So
Hmm.
I'd approach it like that. Now, most of the time people are going to look at there's going to be some kind of value in the land a lot of times. So I don't know if you'll be able to get it for 300 or less, but that's just something to consider. So the cash out of pocket is essentially 25% down on that 300,000 plus another 40% down on the difference between the asking price now and that 300,000. So it's
Okay. All right.
does that so it's
Okay, so you are
25% down
factoring that in. All right.
300,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
And just I guess a comment back to you is, I've been talking to Anna about it, and she doesn't think they're going to go for the 300,000. So that's where I'm trying to, work all the
okay.
numbers and see.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and the numbers are based on 400,000.
yeah.
So, I just look at it like, it's probably a little bit overpriced. I don't know what the final price is going to be,
Right.
um, but yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely raise your hand or jump in when you have questions. I was going to
Okay.
share my site plan here so I can kind of show you if somebody wanted to approach this down the road as a two-phase deal, you could actually, so this is a 64 foot wide lot, so you'd have to do 5 foot setbacks on each of these, so you'd have 54 feet. So you could do another probably 3 townhomes pretty well on this. um So if you go at it from with that strategy, you'd want to obviously like do minimal fix ups on the existing house. You'd probably still have to fix it up a little bit to rent it out, but to kind of offset some of your holding costs. But that could be a strategy that you look at, long term, especially, when you're talking, these are, built and sold 3 years down the road. And then you can kind of reapproach this and say, okay, is it worth it now to tear this down and build 3 more? A lot of times that answer is going to be yes. It might not be, but then you have some flexibility there anyway. Okay, let me go back to the spreadsheet here. There's still a few deals on here that we've had as deals of the week previously. I'm not going to go in depth on them just because you guys can go back and watch my the YouTube replays, like the one from 2 weeks ago on 45th Street. I think that's still on the market. This is another one. A lot of these sellers are kind of caught on 21, 22 prices. And a lot of these deals aren't selling for those. Some of them are, but most of them are. The market is kind of reset a little bit in Garden City, and this is not necessarily a good deal, even though it still has some good profit. We just don't have there's not a lot of guys buying these deals at this price. So, I've seen these same size lots selling for 500,000. Um, so that's probably more like where the market is for this one. But it still has great profit even at the $700,000 price. And then we also have this 39th Street. This is on the market. This is actually like this 350 is actually lower than what they have it marketed for, but we actually have a verbal agreement at this price. We're just trying to, we have a client that owns the parcel next door, and we have another guy that's actually ready to buy this parcel. What he's wanting to do though is wait. We were trying to do an assemblage. There's a third parcel that if we got all 3 of them together, we could actually really do a really cool development with it. It's just that the guy that owns the third parcel is not very cooperative. So, and then let's see. Single family opportunities, not really. There was a bunch that went pending this week. I think there's a couple of these. Yeah. One of these is coming soon, and the other one, oh, is an auction, I think. Yeah, so one's an auction on June 13th. The other one is coming soon. These are both not zoned properly, but they're actually both in a great spot to rezone. Normally I wouldn't use that as an approach all the time, but these are actually like literally right next door, and in a perfect area to rezone, and I think the city would go for it. So I'll underwrite these further. They'll just take a little bit more time. So, but these are actually pretty great prices, particularly this one at 400,000, and with it being an auction, I bet, and um, currently not zoned properly. But it has, it's probably worth this much or a little bit more even just as is. But if we can rezone it and develop it more, could be even better. So I'll look for that coming up here probably next week or the following week before the auction. And then we have some vacant land deals as well. Again, I've had these couple of these as previous deals of the week that haven't sold yet, but Yeah, that's it. Anybody have any questions? Additional questions? Brian, I know you, so you live in Garden City over by the Whitewater Park area. What do you think about the area of this deal on Adams and 45th there?
Yeah, I mean, considering the price point, it's a pretty good project. Um, I like all the new construction that's going in around it, and this is just basically tying it into the existing neighborhood that they're building. So, you got some pretty good comps across the street. Um, I know that part of town is doing a lot of this right now, so I think there's a definite larger upside in the next, you know, 5-year hold on this,
Yeah,
after it's completed. So, definitely, this is kind of like right dead smack in between, what they're doing down on Glenwood and then over here in Whitewater Park where I'm at. So it's just the two areas are gonna come together.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
I've been in a lot of city meetings lately, and the rezoning of everything along this riverfront is going to have huge impacts for residential development. So, um, yeah, it's kind of my opinion on it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I moved over here for a reason. It has a lot of appreciation in the future, so I like it.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I've done deals on uh this side of veterans, and it's getting better and better over here. And this one in particular, just because it has like literally the 22 units directly surrounding it, I think are gonna just help this as well. Cool. I'm gonna stop my recording here, but feel free to you guys that are still on here, feel free to jump in with any questions or comments.